All right, Amy, would you like to go ahead and get started?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Foster, and I am one of your presenters today. Today, this presentation is being done by the ARC of Illinois and the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance. Presents ways to learn about the candidates, issues, and the 2020 census. There are three icons down at the bottom. One is like a gold swirly S, and underneath of it, it says the Arc of Illinois. In the middle of the page, you see a blue shape that looks like the state of Illinois. That is for the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities. The third icon is a black shaped state with two white hands and two purple hands, and it is for the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance. So our next slide says agenda. This is where we're going to learn about the candidates and where they stand on the issues, look at a sample ballot, and learn about the 2020 census, and we're going to have fun too.
Amy, could you please provide a description of the image on the screen, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. The image is Scrabble blocks, and on the little, what I call
The letter holder.
The letter holder, thank you, the letter holder, it spells out the word agenda, and then on the outside of that, it just shows other letters facing up. But those are Scrabble letters, and they're like a square, light tan block with the letters written in dark black. My bad, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay, so our first fun question for all of our lovely attendees. We would like you to know, are you registered to vote? Yes or no? Okay, 100% of our people listening are registered to vote. That's awesome. Our next poll question is, have you ever voted in an election such as the presidential race, the Senate race, or etc.?
Sorry, hold on 1 second. Just trying to make sure that the poll question launched. Hold on 1 second, guys. Sorry. There we go.
And we have 71% that have, and we have 29% that haven't. Okay, so this is, the next slide says, how can I find out about information about candidates and issues? And so you can find out about that a lot of ways. My favorite way is radio. Then there's TV, newspaper, online, and mail. You can also find out information on the candidates campaign website. You can also find out information such as Ballot Petopia and Vote 411 online, and state and local county board elections website. This is an example of a candidate's campaign website, and there's a big blue box, and it's not very good for me to read either. So, but it's from this guy Robert. What's cool about Robert is he's a person with a disability. Nafia, would you tell us what kind of disability he has if you know, please?
Yes, absolutely. Robert Peters is a state senator from Chicago, Illinois, and he is deaf. And so, on top of being an advocate of issues such as banning private detention centers, expanding access to health care, he is also somebody who is an ally of the disability rights community. So we look forward to, on behalf of the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance, the ARC of Illinois, and Equip for Equality, look forward to working with state senators and state representatives like Senator Peters, because it's really important to have visible models in the state legislature that also have disabilities.
Thank you. Our next slide shows the Illinois State Board of Elections website. And under here, there's a lot of tabs that you can find out about a lot of information. What I will share with you is I don't know if it's easy to find or not, but I'll take a wing at this. There are ways that under the ADA, we as people with disabilities can get reasonable accommodations with voting. And so I'm going to talk about 3 of them. One of them is you can use the machine, the electronic machine that looks like a tablet, but has a little more to it than that. But it's about the size of a tablet, where you can, there's like a circle thing where you scroll through the names and you press the button to accept the name, and you wear headphones on that one. The next way, if that device is not your cup of tea, you can have a friend go in front of the election judge on day of voting and swear an oath that they won't mislead your vote, they won't tell you how to vote, they'll just help you record your vote. I've done that several times. The third way you can do that, if you don't have a friend that you really trust and can do that for you, is you can ask the election judges to do that. What will happen is 2 election judges will stand by you, one from the Democratic and one from the Republican. It's pretty cool. So, and then on the website, it just says more about like all kinds of voter services. In the middle, it looks like it has like news, like updates, and on the other side, it has what's coming up next. I see the top one is the one that's most important. It's the general election. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, that's November 3rd. So I find that really cool. Next slide. This again is a website from the elections board. It just says who's running for office. And then it said in even numbered years, you will have the federal and state offices, state senator, state representatives, and county, school boards, and etc. And I will tell you the picture behind of it looks like, is that the Washington Monument? It sure does look like it. If I'm wrong, apologize. But and then I love this. On any website, if you see something blue, it means you can click on it and it will go right to that item. So it says click here to see who's filed to be elected, to file to be a candidate. Okay, next slide. It says well, at the very top it says, who's running for office in Illinois? Vote 411. That is a new resource to me. But I like what showed up. It says to get started, enter your address. Because as many of you know, we all don't live in the same town and in the same county. I might be voting for things that many of my friends don't even have to worry about. So this is just an example of their website. Oh, Navia did this just for me, everybody. I'll give her kudos. This is actually the Madison County Voter Information Guide. This is the county I live in. I live in Madison County, Illinois. And what's really cool is I know Deborah Mendoza quite well. So, and then, okay, so things to think about is the next slide. So these are things to think about. Things to think about are, does the candidate have a plan, have a disability plan? Do they support people living in the community? Do they want to make sure that service providers are paid well? Nafia gets a bonus. Christine gets a bonus. Okay. Do they support funding increases for people with disabilities? So funding increases means more money for services. And then do they believe people with disabilities should have all the other freedoms that everybody else has? Work where they want to work, do what they want to do, go out to eat, go on vacation, buy home, all of those things and more. Other things to, oh, I'm sorry, I missed the description. By the way, the picture of that is a young lady, I believe, speaking up and speaking out at a going home rally. And I'm not for sure of her name, but she's wearing a purple shirt. I see Marielle in the back of the picture, but I don't recognize the young lady. Next slide. Okay, things to think about. And on the right, it says on a chalkboard, written in chalk is what it looks like. Safety first. So we all care about, does your candidate want safer schools? We care about that, or at least I do. Do we care about, does your candidate want people to have access to health care? And then there's a little blue heart with medicine around it, Band-Aid around it. all this medical stuff around it in blue. And then the very bottom right-hand side, it looks like it's gold quarters. We'll just say it's gold quarters. It might be the gold dollar. I don't know. It's gold coins stacked up in rows. And on it, it has those boggle pieces. And boggle is like a die, a dice. And on the first one, it says a T. Second one says A. The third one is an X. The fourth one is an E. And the fifth one says an S, which spells taxes. And it says, does your candidate believe that people with more money should have to pay higher taxes? Loaded question. We're not going to go there today. We're going to have fun. So something interesting that I'm probably going to have to do after this is go and really read some of the candidates' disability plans. Here we have an example of Joe Biden's disability plan. And, and what it doesn't say much here. So we encourage you to go look at that. All right, so this is a sample ballot, and different ballots are done differently, but basically it looks like you draw a line between one to the other. So this is a sample ballot. Sometimes they publish these in newspapers. I know from Madison County, Illinois, they give these out. They give them out frequently at all kinds of community events. So different ways to get hold of a sample ballot. All right. I don't think. All right. Next steps. And in this one, it looks like we have a person walking up a flight of steps. And the steps are gray, but on the ledge, it looks yellow. Reminder, look for your census form in the mail. And you can fill it out multiple ways. And I've heard there's a ton of really cool, accessible ways that you can fill that out. You can use resources from the state election board. Obviously, yes, your local centers for independent living also are a great resource for, they get those sample ballots. They can also help you find where to register to vote and stuff. And there's a couple of easy places to go. You could go to a library, the local library, when it opens. Registers you to vote. Obviously, the DMV, the motor vehicle place where you go get your IDs and stuff, they will register you to vote, but you can also register to vote on their behalf. Okay, the Council on Development of Disabilities, which is awesome and amazing. And then the other awesome and amazing is the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance. You can learn how to get involved in civic issues in your advocacy group. So the self-advocacy groups, there's several throughout the state. And then the last one, Nafia, this is your bullet.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you so much, Amy, for guiding us on what has been very accessible to everybody. And thank you again for continuously doing image descriptions for everyone. So I just want to kind of iterate what Amy has said. Amy has just put so many great resources up on this presentation. I just want to iterate to everybody, like repeat basically what Amy has said, which is everything that is available to you and I is accessible. Whether it is requesting from your local county board a ballot in Braille, whether it is requesting a reasonable accommodation at the ballot if you choose to go in person, which this year we are doing all mail-in ballots. So the cool thing is that you don't even have to physically go into a booth this year. You can vote from home. But it is very important that we reach out and make sure that we are lifting our voices and speaking up and speaking out and making sure that anything to do with voting is accessible to all of us and that we're helping our friends and family, making sure that you are able to access your rights, access the material in order to make an informed choice at that ballot box. And of course, we really want to encourage everybody to join the Going Home Coalition. The Going Home Coalition is a group of self-advocates, service providers, family members, and anybody who is an ally that supports advocating for living in the community. Amy, is there anything else that you think we have to go through before we switch it over to Meg Cooch for census?
Not that I can think of, but I'm gonna stay on so that if people have questions that I can answer, I will answer.
Thank you so much, Amy, and I appreciate everybody for participating again today. We really believe that these webinars are really important, and especially during this pandemic, it's really imperative that we provide information in as many access points as possible. So thank you again, Rhonda, for interpreting today. Thank you, Catherine, with efficiency reporting for captioning today. And I will go ahead and turn the presentation around to Meg Cooch. And again, Meg, if you could just do me a favor and don't forget to do image descriptions for your slides, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Nafia. Thanks, Amy. Welcome, everyone. Hi, my name is Meg Cooch. I'm the Executive Director of the ARC of Illinois. I'm happy to talk with you a little bit today about the census. And the reason we're talking about this with the same time as talking about candidates is the census helps determine how many representatives our state gets to have. So when we talk about people going to Congress or going to DC to help vote and represent what we want, or at the State House in Springfield, if we aren't counted, that could mean that we would have less representation. We would have less people that are speaking about Illinois and talking about our issues and our needs. So it's really important that you and everyone you know fill out the census. On this page, it says a You Be Counted 2020 census, and it has people that are shaped like the United States. Can you go next slide, please? We're going to have two polls today. One is, oh, I'm sorry, I mistyped this. Oh, are we skipping this one? Let's see. Okay. So have you, it's meant to be heard of the census. I'm sorry, that's my typo. So the first question is, have you heard, oops, that says if you, yeah. Have you heard about the census? So have you heard anything about the census? Yes, no, or not sure is what we're going to ask you to select, just so we know kind of where people are. Hopefully this is like voting, where you are all registered to vote. So now it's just a matter of picking your candidate, but we're not sure. And so we want to get a sense. Hold on one sec.
Hold on, just
if you can't find it, we can just have people raise. If you can't find it, we can just have people raise their hand if they've heard of the census. Would you want to do that, Nafia, or are you?
Okay. Yeah, it looks like two people just raised their hand.
Okay. So only a couple people have heard of the census. So that's okay. You can close it. Then I think if you could forward through past the next question too. So only a couple people raised their hand, then I think that we have a sense of what we need. So you can forward past this one. We don't have to do that one up.
Oh, we don't? Okay. Have you filled out the census?
I think we're okay. Yeah. So what is the census? Can you go to the next slide, please?
Yeah. Okay, so what is the census? The census is
basically way back when, the people that founded this country said every 10 years, everyone in the country, doesn't matter if you're a citizen, if you have a green card, if you might not have papers, whatever the case may be, everyone in this country needed to be counted. And they do it for a couple reasons, which we'll talk about in a second. But this is in our Constitution. So this is in kind of the get-go of how we structure our country. It said that we all need to be counted. And it's really hard, right? Because I was just having a conversation with my 6-year-old earlier today at lunch about what we were talking about today. And she said, well, so when someone's visiting me, do they get to be counted? And I was like, no, well, they're counted at their own household. So it's important to know that we need to fill out the census because it's important to be counted, but also kind of a little bit about how it makes sense. Can you go back one, please, for a second? Sorry. We do it every 10 years, and I guess actually I did do that. The census asks everyone in every home, so in your home, to be counted, and it asks just a couple questions. So go forward. You can go next slide, please. So why is the census important specifically to people with disabilities, their families, and service providers, and anyone that is related to people with disabilities? Next slide, please. There's two big reasons. One is money. So the federal government, our national government, sends a lot of money to the state for things. And the census and how many people, for example, people with disabilities, are counted in the census will help them prioritize and decide who gets more money. So if there's more people with disabilities and more unmet need, then people with disabilities and the services we want and need, our transportation, maybe food support, all sorts of things will get more money. They will send more money that way as opposed to other ways where maybe there's less people. So it's really important that there's an accurate count about how many people with disabilities there are in the country. The government needs the right information, and the census helps them get the right information in order to prioritize where to put their money. And so to have enough money for program and services, we need to make sure that we're counted. If we're undercounted, which means a bunch of people decide not to fill out their form, or they say, ooh, this is a little scary, don't want to do this, then we might not get as much money for supports and services for people with disabilities. So that's the problem. Next slide. Oh, can you go back one? Oh, yeah, thanks. Sorry, you forwarded it, I didn't realize. Still getting this down. So the first thing was money. The second thing was what was talking about before, this idea of representation. So who you get to send to Congress, to the federal legislature who makes laws of the land. So usually you get one person on the House side and you get your 2 senators. But if there are less people in our state and our state doesn't count as much, doesn't have as many people, we get less overall people that are voting for Illinoisans. So it's really important to be counted because otherwise we could potentially lose seats in Congress. Go ahead, next slide. So, some people ask kind of what the census asks for, and it's pretty straightforward, right? The census asks 2 kinds of questions. It asks questions about your home, and then it asks questions about each person who lives in your home. So the government kind of wants to know how many people live in each home, but also, are they old? Are they young? Do they, do they have a disability? Do they have other issues? So concerns. So the census asks, what's your phone number? Do you own or rent your house? And how many people live with you? Next slide. The census asks these questions about the people who live with you. So they would ask you your name, what is your sex or your gender, what that you identify, what is your age, are you Hispanic, Latino, or of Spanish origin, and what is your race? Next slide. So not everyone, if you have 5 people in your house or 8 people in your house, not everyone needs to fill out the census. One person needs to fill out the census. And if you live with other people and you decide to fill it out, you should talk to them about what you're filling out so that it's accurate and reflects what they feel for themselves. The important thing here, because I know there's a lot of fear these days sometimes about the census, is that the census is secret. The government is not allowed to share your answers with anyone. And your answers are used to count how many people are in the country. The law doesn't allow your answers to be shared for any reason. So the census does not ask if you're a citizen of the United States, which I know is a concern for some people. I would say for folks who might be on the webinar who live in group homes, maybe with 7 or 5 or 7 other people, I would ask, if you haven't seen it and haven't talked about it, I would ask your house manager or your staff to make sure that they have filled it out for you. And if they haven't, then work with them to get it filled out. Sometimes it comes in and one person opens the mail and maybe did it, and everyone else doesn't realize that it was done. So I definitely would check in with people. But this is important not only for you to understand, but also as you talk to other people, that the census is secret and it doesn't ask if you're a citizen. So there's not that concern there. And more importantly, the census department is not allowed to share the answers, except for top line, we have 300 million people in our country, with other parts of the government. Next slide. So how do I fill out the census? The government sends you a letter in the mail, and they sent it back in March, and that has instructions. You can go online, so there's a little online tablet. It's so funny, we've moved away from computers, but tablets, phone, and then you can also fill it out old school on a sheet of paper. So there's also, there's guides in Braille, so there's accessible large print guides that you can ask for. And there's a phone number on the screen, which we can share later, which is 1-800-923-8282, or you can go online to 2020census.gov, and you should be able to get more information or ask for any accommodation that you might need. Next slide. Can someone help me fill out the census? Just like Amy was talking about getting people to help you fill out your ballot, people can help you fill out the census. You can ask someone that you trust to help fill it out for you. And then the Census Bureau, who are the people at the federal level, at the government level, who oversee this whole process across the country, they also can help. So again, you can go to that 800 number, or you can go online and ask for help if you need it. But you can also help anyone and ask anyone in your home, or if you have people who support you or your family, all of those folks can help you fill it out. Next slide. Are my answers kept confidential, which means to ourselves? And it's yes, it is against the law for the census data to be shared for any reason. Next slide. So sometimes there are people, we hear this with some other big government programs, that decide to try to trick you and try to get your personal information. And so there's some things that the census will not ever ask you. So if someone calls and says they're from the census and they ask you these things, hang up the phone and tell someone, because that means that there's someone that's trying to trick you and maybe take advantage. So the census will not ask you your social security number. They will never send people to jail for not answering questions. And they never ask for money or your bank account information. So they never ask for those personal details that really you should keep to yourself and to those trusted people in your life. So just want to make sure. And like I said, if someone does try to ask you that, I would tell people, either your family, someone that supports you, report it. Okay. Next slide. So this is just a short little video that kind of takes it a step further about the census. Okay, I'm not hearing it.
I'm sorry, are you guys saying that you cannot hear the video?
I can't hear it. I don't know. Amy, can you hear it?
No, ma'am, I cannot hear it either.
Okay. Hold on one second. Let me go ahead and make sure that this thing is accessible. It looks like it's acting a little funny. Hold on. It is captioned, but I would like to try to see if we can also have the sound going at the same time. Just give me 1 second. Make sure it's not something that I'm doing on my end.
You may need to unshare your screen and reshare it, and there's the option to include audio.
Okay, perfect. So,
Sorry.
no,
I
it's
kind of
okay.
sprung that on Nafia at the last minute.
It's okay. I apologize, Becca. You're saying unshare it and then go back to sharing, you mean?
Yep, and then in that box where you click which page, on the bottom it says include audio from your computer.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Share computer. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for telling me about that. All right, everybody, let me know if you can hear it, Meg.
2020 census is coming. It's
Okay, you can hear it now?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
the 2020 census is coming. It's important to be counted, and you may have questions. The census collects information for the government. The government uses that information to make decisions. These decisions affect people with disabilities. This video will answer these two questions. What is the census? How do I fill out the census? What is the census? The government counts how many people there are in the country. The census happens every 10 years. The census asks one person in every home to answer a few questions. A home can be a house or apartment. The census asks two kinds of questions. It asks questions about your home. Then, it asks questions about each person who lives in your home. The census asks these questions about your home. How many people live in your home? Do you own your home or rent it? What is your phone number? The census also asks questions about you. What is your name? What is your sex? The census gives two options. You can choose male or female. What is your age? Are you Hispanic, Latino, or of Spanish origin? What is your race? For this question, you fill out boxes. The census lists different races. Some examples of options are white, black, or American Indian. You can check more than one box. After you check boxes, the census asks for more details, like what area, country, or tribe your family's from. The census will also ask the same questions about the people who live with you. The law says that the answers you give on the census must be kept private. The answers you give are not shared. The law does not allow for your answers to be shared for any other reason. The census does not ask if you are a citizen of the United States. Is it really the census? Sometimes people will mail you spam that says it is from the census. Here's how to tell if mail that says it is from the census is real or fake. The census will not ask for your social security number. If a letter asks for your social security number, it is not the census. The census will not ask for money or your bank account information. If a letter asks for money or your bank account information, it is not the census. How do I fill out the census? The government sends you a letter in the mail. They will send the letter before April 1st. This letter has instructions on how to fill out the census online. You can also fill out the census on the phone. You can fill out the census on paper too. Only one person in your home can fill out the census. If you live with other people, you should talk to them about who will fill it out. If you have questions about how to fill out the census, go to the website 2020census.gov. You can also call the Census Bureau at 800-923-8282. Now you know what the census is and how to fill out the census. To learn more, visit thearc.org/census and make sure that you're counted. The 2020 census.
Thank you, Nafia. So that sort of reiterated what we were talking about. And just to go back to the initial slide, the reason we care about this and spend so much time talking about it and making sure people think about and making sure they're counted is really to make sure that money at the federal level is spent appropriately for people with disabilities, that there's enough money spent to address the support needs of people with disabilities, and to make sure that in Illinois, we get as much representation in Congress and with legislatures as possible. So with that, I think there's opportunity, I think, to put questions in the chat box about either candidates and learning more about candidates and voting, or about the census. I don't know, Nafia, can people raise their hand as well?
Yes, sorry, I'm gonna stop sharing the screen right now. Thank you guys so much for attending. I've got a few people with their hands raised.
Great.
I'm gonna go ahead and unmute Christine Beck first. Go ahead, Christine.
Oh, hi, this is Christine, and I wanted to say that I have completed the census, and they asked questions about each of the people who lived in our house. I did it online, and it was pretty easy.
Thanks very much, Christine. That's great to hear.
So I am going to go ahead and go into the chat box and see if there's any other questions. It looks like we've got J. Jin Pack. Oh, this is perfect. So for those, this is just in case you guys are interested. J. Jin is on the staff at the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance. And if you look at the chat box, he has shared a census webinar that will be sponsored through the Institute on Disability Studies. And it is going to be today at 2 p.m. I will go ahead and make sure that everybody that goes to the ARC of Illinois Facebook page has the link to the census webinar, so that if you are interested in learning more about the census, you can go ahead and sit on the webinar today at 2 p.m. I think that is a great opportunity, and Jajan, thank you so much for sharing that with you. Sharing that with the rest of us. I don't see any questions like in the chat box anyway. So I'm gonna just one last time ask, if anybody has any questions, feel free to use the raise hand feature or use the question box. Right now, I will give people a few moments to go ahead and do that. So please go ahead and feel free to use the raise hand option at the bottom of your screen, or you can go ahead and insert questions in the chat box. Thank you so much.
This is Meg. While we're waiting for folks to think about questions, I guess I wanted to ask Amy and Nafia, since you did the point about candidates and doing a little research about candidates. How have you ever been surprised when you've heard from a candidate, either at a candidate's forum or looking at their website, surprised positively or negatively about what they've said? Has it ever changed your opinion when you've heard them maybe at a forum or looked on their website?
So I guess I kind of got the lucky straw. My shadow has spent years in helping many local politicians here in Madison County get elected. So for us, they all know us personally, and I feel like locally they get it. Now, I'm not saying they get the whole picture, but they definitely get that people with disabilities need support, and so no, I was telling Nafia shortly before our webinar today that my shadow and I got to meet Tammy Duckworth a few years ago, and how cool I thought that was. And Nafia thought it was just cool that I got to meet Tammy Duckworth. Not that she would recognize me if she saw me. If I sent her an email, I might have to jog her memory, but no, I've had a very positive experience because I treat legislators just like I do everybody else. I treat them the way I want to be treated. So I'm respectful of them. Usually they're pretty respectful back to me. Even legislators I don't know. Nafia and I just did a Zoom call with, oh my gosh,
Representative Maurice West.
yeah, and who was the other one?
Which one?
Bob Morgan?
Was
No.
it Maurice?
Representative Maurice, Representative Maurice West, and his chief of staff, Jeremy Ennis. That's who it was.
Yeah. Okay. So we had a meeting with those two, and they aren't even in my area, nothing at all. But really felt like they at least listened. And I've got some homework yet to do on that. But at least listened and heard us, and I felt very validated. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. That I feel like that highlights, that's a pitch for Friday's noon webinar around creating relationships with your legislators and working out how to bill becomes a law. I mean, I will say for me, this last year when there was a gubernatorial race here and there were so many candidates, there was a group of disability organizations that did a forum for all of the governor wannabes, and they, at least on, I guess, the Democratic side, because the Republican side had Governor Rauner at the time, and there's so many so that you had to have two different forums for them. And I remember actually with now Governor Pritzker being surprised and pleased at how knowledgeable he was on that during that, and that changed a little bit of my view of him initially. Not that I had a poor view, but I just didn't think he was maybe the leader of the pack in terms of disabilities and disability rights, and that kind of opened my eyes. So forums is a good place to be educated. And I'm going to stop because I feel like I think there was a question in here that maybe Nafia wants to respond to.
Yes. So thank you so much, Jayjen. Excuse me, Jayjen just asked, are candidate websites the best place to learn about the candidates' stances on different issues? Either Meg and Amy, would you like to answer that, or would you like me to answer it first?
In my experience, I have learned about candidates in a more personal way. Like, my shadow gets invited to a lot of like political dinner things. Yeah. For those of you who know me, you know who I'm talking about, and I don't have to say who my shadow is. But I don't want it publicly out. Thank you. But so because of that, we've actually been able to get to know these people. They're people. So it's like I said earlier, I feel like I really do know Deborah Mendoza. I would go up and go, hi, Miss Mendoza. How are you today? And for us, that's such a big part of our advocacy life that they just do life with us. Now, do we see these people every day? No. Do we miss people because we moved to a new town? Oh, heck yes. Because now I feel like I'm having to start kind of fresh and new with some people. And, you know, but still, I can still call my former representative and say, hey, this is the hot button issue for the month, you know. So I feel like I know them more personally. So I have not gone on many websites, but I will admit I do plan before voting this fall of really researching some people's disability plan, though. Thank you.
Well, and Amy, you raised a good point. So I agree with you. If you can meet candidates, and a lot of times, especially on local and state races, that's the best time to meet a legislator because they're running and they want your vote. So they're going to be willing to spend more time with you than when they're frankly elected and maybe don't need your vote for another 2 years. So that is a great time to engage people directly and see them directly. That being said, I generally look to your point about disability plans. I remember with the presidential election, there were lots and lots of candidates on the Democratic side to try to run against President Trump. And there was a slow, our friends and colleagues in particularly Access Living reported who and shared who had really good, who had disability plans, period, and who had really good disability plans. And then it wasn't until, I mean, fairly recently, like the last month or so, that now kind of the main Democratic candidate Biden has a disability plan. So I didn't read all of them, but I noted who was paying attention to that issue. The other thing is, and I'm going to have to share it afterwards because I don't know them offhand, there's a couple of voting websites that kind of compare, or at least give you what the ballot will look like. And a lot of times on there, if you click, they'll at least have taken snippets from a candidate's website to say, this is what they feel about taxes, this is what they feel about certain issues. So I apologize for not being prepared with those websites, and maybe we could share them afterwards. But there's a couple, there's like Ballotspedia, I think is one of them, but I don't want to give you a wrong one. So, but I have looked at those that compare. The League of Women Voters sometimes compares pretty well, and that's a good place to start if you don't feel like you have time to spend hours perusing people's websites. The other thing I would say is I think there's lots of groups that maybe are more out and can speak to candidates. Like, we don't support or oppose candidates as an organization. The ARC doesn't, because we're a 501c3 organization. We're not allowed to, but there are some kinds of organizations that are and maybe are trusted. So there's the PAC and Inclusion PAC is one of them, which is a group of people that got together and can give out money to candidates specifically on disability issues. The iPad, the Facebook group of parents, that's a pretty large Facebook group. Deb Hamilton from there puts together a report card, at least for people that have been in legislature before and have voted at the state level on things that maybe people with disabilities care about. So those are some places that I would look.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Meg. Kathy Gray would like to talk really quick. I think she has a question, so I'm going to let her talk now. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, this is LaWanda.
Oh, LaWanda. Hi, LaWanda. Did you have a question?
I have a question. I met Pat Quinn long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. What do you think?
About the disability at West Town and Vision. I used to go there for workshops, and he talk about the workshops and different things.
So what was that experience like? Did you enjoy talking to Governor Quinn?
Yes.
Did you feel like he understood people with disabilities and the things we care about?
Yes.
That's awesome. That's
yes.
cool. I don't know if I told you this, but I used to work for Governor Quinn, actually. I worked in his communications office. So that makes me really happy. I had a positive experience, LaWanda. That's awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to ask anybody?
That's it.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Does anybody have any other questions? I want to make sure that we give you guys the opportunity. I know we were supposed to be on here until 1:30, but you guys seem like y'all learned a lot during this presentation, and maybe we can have the opportunity of you guys sharing questions with us through the chat box. I just so you guys know, I went ahead for everybody that's interested in getting in touch with Amy and myself. I went ahead and included our office numbers as well as email addresses. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and take that information down. We can for sure share this PowerPoint slide along with that video to anybody that's interested in getting the information from us after this presentation. And this presentation is recorded, so it's not a big deal if you guys are able to stay until 1:30. I know some people had planned on being here till 1:30, but guess what? Now we don't even have to stay until 1:30. So we'll make sure that the recording is shared with everybody afterwards so that you can access it afterwards. Sorry, Amy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, one thing that I kind of went over really fast was the accommodations for voting. You can still have probably everything but the electronic device if everybody's going to get mailed, but you can still have somebody read you your ballot and everything. And, you know, obviously, because of the Centers for Independent Living in this general area, and I'm talking about Madison County and St. Clair County, pretty much 99% ish are accessible. We're working on that last, ish on getting, but for the most part, most of them are accessible. And so the other great resource is any of the Centers for Independent Living. And there are several throughout the state of Illinois. There's probably one in your neck of the woods. And if you want information about that, you can go to the INCIL website, which is incil.org. That would be probably a great way to, oh, there she goes. So on their website, it shows, because I believe, and Lifeline, me, my wonderful Chicago friends, there are two up in your way, Access Living and one other, I believe.
Yes, Progress Center for Independent Living in the West Suburbs. That also covers suburban Cook County, and then Chicago, City of Chicago is covered by Access Living. And yeah, there are centers for independent living throughout the entire state of Illinois. As Amy mentioned, you go to incil.org. That is incil.org/locate. And that will give you access to the website where you can click on your county. And if you do not know your county, please reach out to us using the information that we shared about our contact information in the chat box, and we'll tell you what county you are when you give us your address. And you click county, and essentially that gives you your local CIL. So if I click on Madison County, Madsion County, that is where Amy Foster lives, who is the person talking to you today. She is with Impact CIL. She is also an active member of Impact Center for Independent Living Self-Advocacy Group. I click on Madison County, I get the website for Impact Center for Independent Living. Ta-da! So it's a magical world. Center for Independent Living is a magical world, and we're very thankful for our partners at incil.org, for that information. Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome. And if I don't immediately respond to you by email, just note that this week has gone into supersonic speed, meaning I've had meetings almost every day this week. Yeah. I don't know how some friends are going to be able to handle me by Friday, because Friday I'm going to be wired for sound. Yeah, and there's several ways to advocate. I believe the statewide plan, the independent living state plan, is it still, Jen, is it still open if you're on? I think it's open. I'm gonna just go there, and if I'm wrong,
hold on. Can you just, Amy, can you do me a favor? Can you just hang on 1 second while I unmute Jen so he can ask?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that would be really great. Hold on. Let me make sure he's still on right now. I don't think he's on anymore. Nope, he's not on anymore. So yes, the comment period, just to answer your question, go ahead.
I'm gonna say, if you haven't looked at the state plan, do that before Friday, please. And you can find that at, you might even be able to find it through the INCIL website, but if you go to Silk's website, which is silc.org, you might find it there. we're talking about the state plan on Friday, so do that today. So yeah, always ways to advocate. And it's like I said, if I don't answer my email, don't take it offensively. It's like this week just went back into full speed and I wasn't ready. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. It looks like we are all finished with questions. It doesn't look like anybody else has questions, and I have gotten to everyone that has raised their hand. So one last time, we just want to thank all of you for attending today. As mentioned, I will get with our staff and make sure that the PowerPoint presentation and this recording is available to everyone. We will also ensure that we will probably put out a survey on behalf of the ARC of Illinois and the Self-Advocacy Alliance to make sure that you all provide feedback to us about this and all the sessions this week. As I mentioned, we will be available after the session to answer any questions. I will make sure that the PowerPoint presentation has mine, Amy's, and Meg's information. I would like to thank Rhonda Estelle for interpreting with ASL today. I would like to thank Letty Bardek for doing our Spanish interpretation today. Gracias, gracias, muchísimas. And I would also like to say thank you to Catherine Rashjan with Efficiency Reporting for doing our captioning today. Meg, is there anything else you would like to say or say goodbye to everybody before we end this call?
Thank you all for joining today. It was great to have you on. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.